It is true that I love picking out what matters, sort of in a discussion, in digital analytics, in anything. That's what my brain is always doing, is going, what's important there? What constraints do we have? How can we work through that? And what's our next step? So that is the perspective that I've taken in putting this content together, is to really try and make it something that's actionable for you. We have a lot of experience helping small and large businesses and nonprofits, but I'm not a nonprofit expert. So what I want to do is to share with you some of the lessons that we've learned in optimizing for revenue and conversions. We're great at optimizing digital marketing campaigns, and I hope you'll go away with some ideas from today to help your digital marketing campaign get better. I also want to say that 2 October is recently certified as a B Corp, which we're super excited about. B Corps are businesses that have gone through a high level of scrutiny in an accreditation process to demonstrate that we are serving the best interests of all of our stakeholders, but including of course, our shareholders, employees, community, and the environment. So we're really proud of that certification. Okay, so Giving Tuesday is a global phenomenon. It is something. In 2019, there were 20 billion social impressions around Giving Tuesday, and nearly $2 billion was raised worldwide. This was a movement that was started in 2012 by New York's 92nd Street Y and the United Nations Foundation, but has continually grown over the years. And I think even if you haven't participated in the past, I think it's really worth taking a look at and seeing how you can participate. And we'll talk about a couple different options for doing so. In the US, the online donations reached 500 million last year, and they've been growing steadily every year. Will they grow this year? I think there's a lot of variables going into that. Certainly, we're all nervous about the economy. But one factor to maybe give us hope about not only our Giving Tuesday contributions, but also what might happen for end of year contributions, is that during the Great Recession, donors who continued to provide charitable support actually increased their donation level by 40%. So we do know also, anecdotally, I think that this time encourages us to want to reach out to others. And so I think that is really the spirit of Giving Tuesday, is how can we provide avenues as nonprofits for people to leverage that caring spirit and do something about it. So today we're going to have 4 parts. We're going to first just talk about some foundations, some thoughts about Giving Tuesday in general and how to think about it. We'll talk briefly about some planning steps that we would encourage you to do. The meat of the presentation is really around tactics. So talking pros and cons of some different tactics, which ones you might attack, and how you might do that a little bit better, or how you might knock it out of the park. So first of all, we'll talk about some foundations. First, let's just remind ourselves, Giving Tuesday this year falls on December 1st, 2020. So that's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving, traditionally falls right after Cyber Monday. And some people think of it as a little bit of an antidote to the consumerism that really is Cyber Monday and Black Friday. So some basic information. I mean, I think one of the reasons to participate in Giving Tuesday is that it gives you visibility and momentum that you're not able to achieve as a single nonprofit. So by joining this movement, you're part of something bigger, and people are going to be able to find you better if you participate and list yourself as a participant. So the first thing you should do is register your participation at givingtuesday.org. It's really fast and simple. You just add your business name to that, your nonprofit name to that. And that you can, users who are interested in finding, or even journalists who are interested in finding organizations that are participating, can search through that list by name and by geography. There are also 200 community campaigns across the US, and those are geographically based hashtags and movements. Sometimes those have websites behind them where you can list yourself. So Give Back Tahoe, Illinois Give. And there are specific cause and issue coalitions like Giving Zoo Day and Latinx Give. So go to the givingtuesday.org website and look at the different organizations that are listed there, and add yourself to the movement, and that'll give you that little extra push that people can find you, be aware of what you're doing, and hopefully contribute. Speaking of contributions, you know, one of the things to know is that Giving Tuesday is not about donations. So the Giving Tuesday organization, which is a huge proponent, I mean, they're just really trying to advocate for this movement, calls it a global generosity movement. And so if donations doesn't feel like the right thing for your organization, if you're on this call because you're a charity-minded business, if you want to do something other than raise donations, do that. Here's a couple examples. Tom's, the shoe company, they actually a couple years ago closed their stores for the morning so that their employees could go out and volunteer in the community. This other organization called Nothing But Nets, which is a charity that provides mosquito insect netting, they were promoting something they were involved in with Charity Miles, which is a way of using your fitness activities to acquire donations for your organization. So there are lots of different ways that you can participate if asking for donations isn't what you want to do, isn't what's within your purview. If you're a business, maybe you want to ask for donations for organizations of your employees, or maybe you just want to have a volunteer days. All of those things count, and you should talk about them, because that will bring you in as part of the movement overall, and it just builds the excitement, I think. So a common concern that we've heard from nonprofits is that Giving Tuesday donations, probably they must absolutely cannibalize end of year donations, right? It's so close to when we're doing a major push. Why would we, number one, bifurcate our efforts because we have a limited amount of time, but also why would we ask for a donation again? And is that going to mean that we won't get as many end of year donations? The evidence that we have about it is that it is not actually cannibalizing those donations. So people who are your donors, who also give on Giving Tuesday, are giving more money overall. It's also really effective at finding new donors. So there are donors who are giving only on Giving Tuesday and not doing end of year donations. And correlating donors of Giving Tuesday and donors who give during the last 5 days of the years have shown in some studies that they're actually different groups of people. So hopefully, if you've come into this thinking, gosh, we can't do this, I think you can. And I want to give you some ways of doing that that are really as much about amplifying and leveraging the emotional support that you have from your community as it is from getting dollars from that same community that you're asking a lot of already. So we have some ideas for that. A principle I want to share with you that applies across digital marketing campaigns for many different areas is that you'll get better engagement if you provide multiple ways to convert, to give, to interact. So the Giving Tuesday organization says the vast majority of people donating dollars also take some other form of action. So it's worth it to think a little bit and be creative about the different things that you might ask during this campaign. So the first example has Volunteers in Medicine America asking for sharing of the posts. The next one asks for sharing of a donation request. The picture asks for donations of physical goods. And of course, the last one is just straight out asking for dollars, which is also just fine. And it is what people expect here. So if you're going into this feeling concerned, as we've heard a little bit, you know, do I really want to be asking again? How many times can I ask? That's really what this is all about. The community who is interested in Giving Tuesday, who is amenable to those messages is expecting to be asked. And so let's ask them for a few different things. Okay, so hopefully got your juices flowing. You're thinking, okay, maybe we can do this. Maybe we can get behind it. So let me talk to you a little bit about planning the process. The first thing I want you to think about is really make this an incremental thing. Don't make this a brand new gigantic thing. So how can you do Giving Tuesday one step better than you did last year? Here's a couple examples. So what outcome are you working for? Maybe last year you just applied the hashtag to a couple social tweets. Well, let's have a goal here. So what would your goal be? We'll talk about that in a little bit. Now is not the time to be launching a new channel. So I'm going to include some advice for how to leverage Giving Tuesday on Twitter. If Twitter is not a big channel for you, just skip that advice. Let's look instead at what's working now and amplify that. Let's look at the social media platform you have the most traction on and do more of that. Let's look at one thing that you could track better, which would give you better insights into how this whole campaign went. Let's pick one or two things and not try and boil the ocean here. The other thing I want to remind you is that you can ask for volunteers to help. There are some specific, in particular, planning activities, preparation activities that volunteers may be able to help with. Even your volunteers who are doing physical activities, you know, they have day jobs that may make them qualified for things like designing images, writing some of your social media posts, or monitoring and responding to social media posts right around Giving Tuesday itself. So think outside the box a little bit. Okay, so what should be the goal of your campaign? There's two components, I think, to think about this. Number one is, what is it that I want to have? Am I trying to get a large value, a large dollar value in donations? Am I trying to increase the number of donors? Am I trying to get people to attend an event? Am I trying to increase the number of social media followers? All of those things have value, and by specifying this year, we're going to have a goal, and our goal is going to be X, and that's one step better than it was last year. It can really help you refine and prioritize your tactical activities. If your goal is to increase the number of social media followers you have, then making sure that you have the best donation page possible in this short time frame isn't as important. So use this setting of a goal to help you prioritize what tactics you engage in. And then think about who it is that you're trying to engage with. Are you trying to engage your past donors? Are you trying to move your promoters and followers up from being more active donors, or even more active promoters of your message? Are you trying to attract specifically new donors? Are you trying to activate your volunteers in different ways? So be specific, and again, that will help you craft the creative and the messages that you're sharing during this time. So let's take a look at an overview of what your planning cycle, your execution and planning cycle is going to look like for this period. This is a brief overview. There are a lot of templates available for Giving Tuesday, including calendars and example social media posts and example emails and things like that. But as a rough outline, what we would recommend is that you look at October as your planning month. So thinking about what you're trying to do, goals, channels, what stories you're trying to tell. And you also use it as an opportunity to review how things stand, and if there's anything you want to brush up, and test things out to make sure that everything is working correctly. October is also going to be your time frame for building out your posts and images, and you can have them all scheduled to go. We recommend starting your Giving Tuesday promotion 1 month out. So the November 3rd is exactly a month out, and then following that up with communications once a week throughout November, leading up to some bigger announcements the day before, and then a lot of great real-time activity on Giving Tuesday itself. So generating that excitement on social media, reminding people that today's the day to follow, to contribute, updating people on how you're doing towards your goal, and then celebrating with your community all that you've accomplished that day. You'll want to follow up Giving Tuesday activities with thank yous to donors. And then measure and report. So it doesn't, let's make sure that we know what we accomplished, and we take a few minutes to reflect on what it is we want to do next. And if you've gotten all these new people in your community, whether they're donors or volunteers or promoters, how can you stay engaged with those people next year? So maybe 3 or 6 months down the line, you want to reconnect with some of those contributors and say, look, because of you, here's what we've been able to accomplish in the last 6 months. And we're super excited about that. So how do you turn that into a new engagement cycle with this new group of folks? The slide deck is going to be available to you guys. Maggie will send it out in the next couple of days, so you can come back and refer to this stuff too. So we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the content of what you're promoting, because you guys know your businesses, your nonprofits and your causes and your stories really well. And you leverage those techniques for your fundraising efforts across all of your channels. To give you a little bit of inspiration on how to build a campaign that connects. First of all, how are you going to get their attention? There's a lot going on. So brainstorm with your team, with some interested volunteers, some visual and verbal hooks that are going to get people's attention, so that you're leading with something intriguing and not leading with an ask. Tell your story. People want to understand what your impact is on real people or animals or whatever the environment that you're impacting. We don't feel compassion for statistics, so don't lead with numbers. Lead with real stories. Talk about real people, but do convey urgency. So be clear on what you want them to do. Have a clear call to action. That's one way you can indicate that urgency, and make it time critical. That's, I think, one of the advantages to getting on board with the whole Giving Tuesday thing, is that it puts a deadline. Now, of course, it's an arbitrary deadline, but it gets people rallied to go from thinking about doing something into actually doing something, because they can be part of something on that day. So also look for how you can take your stories and create ways to engage with people. People who are engaged are going to be feel more connected to you and stick with you for a longer time. So how are you going to give people ways to react to what you're doing, to participate, and to share? And there are a lot of good ideas. If you do a search on Google for Giving Tuesday campaigns, there are just a lot of really creative ideas for how to do this. Would you do this with a live event? There's just a ton of ideas out there. So if you're interested in ideating more that way, we're not going to focus on that a lot, but certainly the content here is a critical component of your digital marketing campaign. And so do spend some time thinking about that. So what we're doing here today is not just about Giving Tuesday. It really is about how you might plan and improve any campaign, any marketing campaign that you're thinking of doing. So I would encourage you to Also take from this presentation thoughts about how you can build a long-term framework for taking an idea, planning out a campaign, executing on it, measuring it, and then evaluating it and optimizing it, and using what you've learned from each campaign that you do through the year to improve your campaigns, maybe get a little bit deeper, but even evaluate what's worth spending time on and what isn't from what I did. I'm going to throw this out because it didn't really have any have as much impact as this thing over here did. So think about this as a long-term framework of a way of approaching your marketing, your digital marketing campaigns that will continuously improve. Okay, I'm going to take a sip. We are next going to talk about tactics, and there is a ton of information in here. We're going to stop midway through so that you have the opportunity to ask questions about individual topics. If you have concerns, questions, whatever. So, so look out for those. The tactics that are the most effective for Giving Tuesday digital campaigns are social media is the big one, because it is a mostly digital movement, and it is socially driven by connections in social media. We're going to talk about how you can leverage and expand those. We'll talk about how you can leverage paid search and paid social, how you can leverage email, and how you can improve your donation page, all to make your Giving Tuesday more effective. So let's take a look at the behemoth digital channel for Giving Tuesday, which is social. So why is social media such a big deal for Giving Tuesday? Let's take a look at Facebook specifically. Facebook has been offering a lot around this movement. Last year, they raised $120 million on Giving Tuesday itself, so an enormous amount of money. And they raised $20 million in the week prior to that as well. There were over 1 million people who created fundraisers or donated on Facebook. So there's just a large number of people that are being activated by Giving Tuesday on Facebook. So we're going to talk in depth about some opportunities in Facebook. Instagram is a good channel to look at because the audience skews younger, including a large percentage of Gen Zers. And as we know, Gen Z is more likely to donate. They're really primed for contributing to nonprofits. And so this is the place where you can engage with that audience. They've added a donate now button in the past year, which Facebook has had for a little while. So we'll look at that a bit. And then Twitter is great for interacting with other brands and companies. So if you are partnering with another company, if a company is partnering with you to during this time, Twitter is a great place to sort of have the dialogue with that other company and make others aware of what you guys are doing together and sort of help each other amplify your messages. Twitter skews more male than the other platforms. And so if that's a key target audience for you, then it might make sense to focus some of your efforts on Twitter. But let's take a look at Facebook more closely. So Facebook represents a pretty large opportunity, but also comes with a couple significant challenges. So there's an interesting study that an organization called MR does that polls data on digital marketing and online fundraising for about 100 nonprofits. They do tend to skew a little bit large, but it's an interesting study, and we'll send out that link. I think it's in the resources section of the slide deck. So what their study shows that Facebook revenue contributed 3.5 of all online nonprofit revenue in 2019. And for the health sector, it was even bigger than that. It was 10%. And that's in part because there's a lot, there's more of an established history of peer-to-peer fundraising for health issues. If you think about maybe what you've been asked to contribute to help help with a health cause of someone you know. Facebook fundraisers make up 97% of these donations. And so we'll talk about what those are and how to leverage them in a minute. And the average Facebook fundraiser effort generated 6 donations with an average gift of 30. So this is not the way you're going to make your next $1 million, but it is a really intriguing way of expanding your donor list outside of your regular community. The challenges of Facebook is it's hard to reach your followers for free. So not everybody realizes this, but for pages, business pages, nonprofit pages who make posts, only 9% of your followers are seeing that post. That is true across every industry, and unfortunately it's declining. Facebook's algorithm for what they want to show to users just doesn't include that kind of content. So we'll talk about how to get around that in a bit. And then the other big limitation, a big challenge, I think, for nonprofits used to seeing a donation as the beginning of a relationship is that the data that you get out of Facebook fundraisers is limited. So I'll talk about that a little bit more. Hopefully you guys know what Facebook fundraisers are, but just to give you an overview, fundraisers is a button that's available at the top level for Facebook users. Once you click on it, you get to a page where you can decide as a user, I want to select a nonprofit and raise money for that nonprofit. And once I do, this is what that looks like. It shows up in my feed that I am running a fundraiser and I'm asking you to contribute to it. And it's got this little progress bar so you can see how well you're doing. The thing that makes that Facebook does so well, that makes this incredibly enticing, is all of the social proof that happens at each stage of the process. So as I go to create my fundraiser, I'm seeing how many other people in my network have participated in fundraisers. And as that fundraiser gets going, I'm seeing how many other people that my friend who posted this from is getting responses from, and that sort of increases the urgency around it, the interest to contribute. In fact, it's particularly useful with millennials who are more likely to contribute to a nonprofit if it was recommended by a friend. So the way that the fundraisers work from a payment perspective is worth knowing about if you haven't done one of these before. If you do nothing and somebody sets up a fundraiser for you, or you can create one for your organization, it doesn't have to be a person, so you could create one and you should do that as part of this, part of Giving Tuesday. Then the money that people donate doesn't go directly to you. It goes into Facebook's donor advised fund, which is called Network for Good. And you will get the money, but it takes a while. It can take a number of months. So the alternative is to sign up for Facebook payments, and that will allow those donations to go directly to you. Now, what I mentioned before, though, still counts, which is either of these ways, you do not get anything about these donors except for their name. Now, of course, with their name, you can use the Facebook platform and send them a message and try and get them more engaged, but you're not going to get their address, their phone number, permission to email them. You're not going to get their email address, all of that kind of stuff. So that can be, I think, a shift in thinking for some nonprofits, that what you're getting out of these people is their donation, but not a relationship. I still think that's really valuable, but it's something to consider. Okay, so we're going to see a lot of slides like this, the good, better, best. And the idea here is, okay, what are we going to do on Facebook? What really should I do if I want to leverage Facebook in my Giving Tuesday campaign? And we're organizing these into good, better, and best so that, again, you can bite off a little bit at a time. This year, accomplish everything in the good column and ignore the other two. Or maybe you've already accomplished the good ones and you're looking for what's that next step forward. So that's the methodology here. So if you're interested in upping your Facebook game, using Facebook to contribute to your Giving Tuesday efforts, in the good column is really just using Facebook, right? Like make sure your page looks okay, schedule some posts, all that would be terrific. Be engaged in the platform. The next step up would really be asking people to donate and asking people to create Facebook fundraisers for you. And then even better than that would be running ads, which I have a whole nother slide about running ads on Facebook, and maybe branding your page for the day. So here's your sort of roadmap for how you could leverage Facebook a little better for your Giving Tuesday campaign this year. All right, well, let's talk about Instagram, and then we'll talk about Twitter. So if Instagram is a platform that you're interested in exploring more, so some basic ways to engage with it are to link to the donation page from your profile, and on the posts that you're doing that are Giving Tuesday specific, make sure that you're using some hashtags. Our general recommendation for Instagram and Twitter is to limit the number of hashtags you use so it doesn't look too spammy. So use 2 to 4 hashtags. But those hashtags are going to be things like Giving Tuesday, those geo hashtags, geo Giving Tuesday hashtags, and also hashtags related to your, to the thing that you are, the cause that you are behind, because that's what's going to help expose you to that. That and the Giving Tuesday will help expose you to that wider audience. You can, in order to put the donate button on your Instagram account, you need to sign up for the charitable giving tools, which will take 2 to 3 weeks for them to get through and process. So that would be a next step to go with there. Those are fairly new, so we don't have a lot of experience with them, but worth doing if Instagram is where your target audience is at. And then running some ads would be the best thing to do there to increase your exposure for your cause to the audience that you're going after. Any questions about Instagram right now? Okay. So Twitter, so some similar recommendations. If Twitter feels like the right opportunity for your nonprofit, some basic things you can do to support your Giving Tuesday campaign would be linking to your donation page from your profile and using those hashtags so you can get wider visibility. You can also ask supporters to change their Twitter display names for the day. Of course, you can run ads on Twitter. You can also brand your page for the day, which some statistics show that a branded profile page will get you more donations than a non-branded. And in this case, I don't mean your brand, I mean the Giving Tuesday brand, right? So you combine those two together in how you're describing yourself. Okay, shoot Twitter questions over to Maggie if you have them. Otherwise, I'm going to keep going. Okay, so let's talk about paid advertising, because most of what I've focused on for those social channels have been things that you can do without paying money. But I did say that Facebook comes with its catch. So paid advertising, you know, why would you want to do that to contribute to your campaign here? I mean, basically, of course, advertising is going to increase your visibility, but you need to be evaluating that against the return that you're going to get from it. So how do you make those determinations? And we come back to this idea that Facebook posts are going to be seen by less than 10% of your followers. So if you're promoting your giving, if you're putting a lot of effort into promoting your Giving Tuesday campaign in your organic Facebook posts, you're not going to get as much exposure as you really need to get those going. So the way to work around that is either to push heavily on the sharing angle, right? Which says, hey, Maggie, you're a follower of mine. I wouldn't say it to Maggie specifically. Audience who are followers of mine, I really need you to help us out on Facebook. And maybe you send this out via email. In addition to sending it out via Facebook, I want you to create a Facebook fundraiser on our behalf. So you're really working your contact list to have them help you get the exposure that you can't get by yourself. The other alternative is to pay more to get that visibility. And so in running ads, we can take your regular organic posts and boost them and give them more visibility both to your own audience and other audiences that you'll specify. As a rule of thumb, the study that I mentioned of those 100 nonprofits, mostly sort of on the large side, they tend to spend 7% of what they raised online in digital ads. So from a budgeting perspective, if you think about starting with a budget of 5 to 10% of what you expect to raise online, what you raised online last month or last year, would be a good way to think about it. And you can, on Facebook, make an impact with a small spend. So which channel would you be investing your paid advertising in? So the return on ad spend, which is the amount of revenue or donations that you get versus your investment, how much you spent on those ads, tends to be highest in all of our campaigns and nonprofit and for-profit businesses, tends to be highest in search ads. And the reason for that is that in search, users have to type in a query, right? They have to say, I'm looking for X. So they're really already into the buying cycle. They're already thinking about something, about doing something, which makes them really more valuable and more likely to turn into donations. And so we see our best return on ad spend with search ads and with remarketing. Remarketing ads work to re-engage people who have already either been on your website or engaged with something like your Facebook or Instagram presence, like liking a post, to show them ads again. And this is particularly helpful when we are thinking about building a campaign with multiple touch points. We see this a lot in products where what you're going to purchase takes a little bit of thought. If I'm going to purchase a hotel stay in Mexico, I'm not going to book the first time I go to that hotel website. I'm going to want to talk to my best friend and make sure that she thinks it's a good idea to go there as well. Or I'm going to want to look at my budget and look at their, compare all those different things. Remarketing is really helpful in staying top of mind with people. And it's really helpful for reminding people as you get closer to the Giving Tuesday date that they can be a part of this experience with you. In our experience, display and social return on ad spend is 1/4 to 1/3 of what it is for search ads. And if you want some specific numbers, it varies across industries. This study that I mentioned from M&R said that the average cost per acquisition for a nonprofit lead that these businesses are spending is between $2 and $3. So for every, I was going to try and do math in my head. It's between $2 and $3 is what I'm going to stick with. So the thing about comparing those return on ad spends, which is important, right? If we're going to put in $100, we want to get as much revenue and donations from that as we can. But the potential audience is much larger in social and display than it is in search. So there aren't, in the end, that many people who go into Google and search for animal welfare agency donations, as there are people who are actually interested in animal welfare and might engage with a post and an advertisement on social. So those are some of the trade-offs to think about. So let's take a look at Facebook specifically. The Facebook platform also runs ads on Instagram. So we tend to just say Facebook ads, but we actually mean Facebook and Instagram. If you're going to participate here, one of the key components here is to use engaging images. And an easy audience to target is friends of your followers, because they're likely to hold some similar interests and may be motivated by the same things. If you want to invest a little bit more time, effort, money, including a donate now button is a great idea, using remarketing. One of the things, if you're going to run ads in Facebook and Instagram, is to use UTM tags for tracking And that means that the destination URL of the ad, so where the ad goes to, if it's going to go to your website, you want to tag that so that Google Analytics can identify it as coming from Facebook or Instagram advertising instead of just coming from Facebook or Instagram organic posts. And we'll get to tracking later. So if you have questions or want to see how to do that, I'd be happy to answer that. And then using a layered audience targeting is really effective for a lot of purposes. In this case, though, what it'll help you do is target your ads to people who Facebook thinks are interested in philanthropy and the type of cause that you're interested in as well. We have a whole workshop around building social campaigns that convert. There's a URL in this slide deck that we'll send out, and you can also find the page on our website. So any questions about advertising in Facebook and Instagram? Okay. Don't forget, if something comes up, you can ask us in office hours. Okay, so the second platform I would look at investing advertising dollars into is Google Ads. That's sort of a trick title though, because you can advertise on Google as a nonprofit for free by getting a Google grant. So qualified 501(c)(3)s can get a Google grant, and you have an allowance of ads that you can run on Google for absolutely nothing. Now, the campaigns are a little complicated to get running and to keep successful. We have a couple of blog posts on those topics, as well as a workshop that's you can see the recorded version of at that link below. For a Giving Tuesday campaign, what you're going to want to focus on is niche keywords that really help you fine tune and hone in on that little slice of the audience who is going to be perfect for you. So now is the time to be narrow. So find the best animal welfare nonprofit to donate to continue to use my example would be the right kind of keywords to look for. And go ahead and do that in your Google grant campaign. Make sure that you've got that kind of keyword coverage in there now. So if you want to amp it up a little bit, you would run a paid campaign concurrently. And some of the more successful paid campaigns include video. So if you've invested in your nonprofit in creating a compelling video, and especially if you can cut that down to a short length and have a compelling value proposition in it, that's great for video advertising. The other type of paid advertising on Google that's really effective is remarketing. In this uses visitors from your website and gives them ads wherever they are out on the web. So it's not just displaying ads on Google. Same thing with Facebook remarketing. It's not just showing ads on Facebook. It's showing ads on Facebook and out there on the web elsewhere. And then the other thing you can do with paid media budget is to boost important keywords. So if you have a set of keywords that have been successful for raising money for you in the past, now right around Giving Tuesday is a good time to spend some money to get more visitors from those ads. Okay, questions? Alrighty. So next we'll go into email. And I know that email is a lot of how you are connecting with your community and your donors right now. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about this, but coordinating your message across all of your channels for Giving Tuesday is a good idea. So incorporating Giving Tuesday messages into what you're doing in your emails in the next couple of months is a positive. Again, this is a global movement, right? So it's the opportunity for you and your donors to be part of something bigger that has that urgency behind that deadline to it. So it is a good thing to try out. One of the things we know, again, from all of our digital campaigns is the better the match between the promotion and the page, the more conversions. So in the case of email, making sure that what you're writing about in the email about your Giving Tuesday stuff goes to a page on the website that talks about your Giving Tuesday promotion campaign is going to generate more donations than one that just goes to your regular donation page or one that goes to your home page. I'll talk a little bit more about landing pages in a minute. So email, the opportunity to segment your email audience for Giving Tuesday means the opportunity to ask for different things. So if you're feeling like, hey, we're about to ask this big donor for their annual contribution, and I don't want to ask them for money for Giving Tuesday too. I know, Chris, that you said that it wouldn't cannibalize, but I don't believe you. That's fine. Maybe you think about how to activate those people in different ways, right? So could I send an email out to previous donors asking them to create Facebook fundraisers, asking them to volunteer to help with this plan, asking them to share this message on Facebook? So think about using email not just for generating donations directly from this campaign, but also to engage in these other multiple touch points and get your message out in a broader way beyond your regular community. So probably most of you are doing email, but if you're not, and you're going to start with this campaign, I would recommend that you start out by keeping your call to action simple, that you make sure that you're optimizing your emails for mobile. So that means hopefully your email tool has a way of previewing what it would look like in mobile, but if not, send yourself a copy and look at it on your mobile device and make sure it looks okay. Most of the emails that you send out are going to be viewed on a mobile device, and then test it out. Some of this testing is what I'm describing, looking at it on a mobile device, but it's also making sure that the links work and things like that. If you want to kick it up a notch, ask for shares, either social shares or via email. Share this email with somebody else via email. And do make sure you're using UTM codes so that you're tracking traffic that comes from emails into your website appropriately. Segmenting your audience and messaging is going to work really well for this type of campaign, so that you can decide what you want to ask from each of these people to make your robust campaign complete. Okay, so the last component we're going to talk about in these channels, so in where you can invest your time to improve and get your message out and improve your Giving Thursday campaign, we're going to talk about the donation page itself. So what I want you to do is to think about, we've spent some time thinking about how to promote our messages and these users out in Facebook and attracting them and getting them to act. But what happens when people click from that Twitter profile to your website? What we want to do is make sure to keep them engaged and focused on the goal. So it is worth spending time creating a landing page that accepts donations, that is specific to your Giving Tuesday campaign, and it doesn't need to be complicated. We'll talk about it on the next page. What I'll say again, the better the match between the promotion and the page, the more conversions. So if you're talking about Giving Tuesday in your profile on Twitter, the page that you link them to ought to also mention Giving Tuesday. We advise clients all the time on how to optimize the landing page so that it converts better to whatever kind of action they're out for. And there's a couple common themes that we recommend you follow. One of them is to have a clear headline. So in this case, that's wildfire relief. The second is to have compelling benefit statements. So specifically, what is this money going to do? And this is way too small to see, but this says things like delivering meals, providing shelter, things like that. So it's very clear to me what my dollars are going to do and how they'll benefit your organization. It doesn't have to be pictures. It could be a bulleted list. That would be equally effective. You should have a clear call to action, right? The point of this page is to get people to donate. So let's make sure that we're asking and it's easy for people to find. In this example, I'd actually like that black bar to be a little bit more visible, but I really like that they've got that red button down there because it makes it easy to see where visually, just I'm tracking the page. What am I supposed to do? Oh, there it is. That's where I go to complete what I came here to do. The other thing that you'll notice about this page is that there are not a lot of extraneous links on the page. So if we're trying to get donations, we're not trying to get other things, right? We're not trying to get people to go read our blogs. And in fact, if we provide a way of doing that, then we might lose them, right? They might get distracted. They might have to go answer the phone and they won't remember what they were doing here and we won't get the donation in the end. So try and make your landing page be on its own page without even potentially the navigation that you usually have at the top of your page, certainly without links to other blogs or other sections to the website. So the thing that you want to do if you're going to be going out and asking for donations is absolutely test, right? Make sure that the functionality is working, that you're getting accurate tracking out of it, and that you're testing it on both mobile and desktop. If you already have a donation page and it's really not feasible for you to do anything more, put a mention of Giving Tuesday onto the page. Like, you know, we're happy to see you here for Giving Tuesday, or, you know, thanks for being part of our Giving Tuesday campaign, something like that. If you're able to build a Giving Tuesday specific donation page, that would be really terrific. There are pre-built templates on places like Theme Forest that you can use that go for pretty low cost. And the advantage to doing that is you don't really have to think a lot about what the components of the page are. You can just find content to fill it in. One of the things to be careful about is to watch the page load time. So the page, how long it takes the page to load, especially on mobile, but also on desktop, is correlated with how well that page converts. And we actually have a white paper available on the website if you want more specific data around that. But make sure that you're building a page that loads quickly. Images, they're lovely, but if you put on a zillion of them, your page is going to load too slow. So just mind that. And then also make sure that on your donation page, you're including several price points and that your starting point is high enough. You probably have thought about this for your regular donation page. The same makes sense for this page as well. Make sure it's a little bit high and that you're leaving an open space for people to type in their own donation amount. If you're expecting a lot of traffic to your donation page, either this one or your other one, we would recommend that you do some A/B testing. Because even though I said I like that red button on that page, it's possible that an orange button would be more successful. It's possible, you know, this idea that I want that black bar to stick out more. Well, let's actually test that. The landing page tool that we use is called Unbounce, and it lets you build landing pages pretty quickly, but it also lets you A/B test those landing pages. So you can say, hey, what's the conversion rate that happens on the orange button versus the red button version of the page. And then the other thing that you can do is look at the number of steps it takes for users to donate and reduce it. So can you ask for less information? Can you consolidate information so there are fewer clicks? That's a whole different set of optimizations and recommendations we could go into, but that is an area that if you look at that on your regular donation page or on this specific donation page, you will make a difference in improving the number of people who complete that step. Okay, so I am going to talk about analytics and measurement for a few minutes. We are probably 10 minutes away from office hours, but I will pause, take a drink, and ask for any questions on the email and donation pages. Okay. So you put all that effort in, right? You've done a little bit better in planning and preparation. You've used some promotion channels in a way that you didn't last year. How did it go, right? That's what we want to know at the end. And I think we sort of got into it with a question with Narissa, like, how did you do last year? Well, there's some components I can test and I can know about from last year and some components I can't. So How can we improve that for this year? The best thing you can do is just make sure that you're set up to know how well you did. What kind of traffic did you get at a baseline? What kind of increase in followers did you get? Even better would be if you could use that same information at a deeper level to know where you got the best return on your energy or your dollar investment, right? So the, I don't know, signing up for Instagram donations took a lot of time and I only got $10. Okay, good to know, right? Versus doing the same thing on Facebook, took the same amount of time and got me $200. That'll help you plan for your efforts for your next campaign, whether that's for your end of year campaign or going into next year. So knowing where you can go next is really the holy grail of all of this lovely tracking we can do with digital marketing. So what are you going to track? Let's go back to that goal list. What you want to be able to track and validate that you are tracking accurately is the same thing that is your goals. So given that in the planning stage of this process, hopefully you will have determined what your goal is, this will help you figure out, okay, how do I get that tracking set up and make sure it's working? The tool set that you're going to be leveraging for tracking includes Google Analytics, which of course tracks the traffic on your website, all the way through to donations if you can, or maybe to that donate click. And by using UTM tags, you can differentiate traffic from campaigns you create in social and email from other sources of traffic. So if you're doing any paid social advertising, you're going to want to put UTM tags on that to differentiate it from your organic social traffic. And that's going to be really helpful in understanding the ROI of those platforms, because if you can track that users from paid search became donors at the rate of 1%, but users from Twitter became donors at 2%, then that helps you refine where it might make more sense to spend more investment in future campaigns. Google Tag Manager is a tool that we come back to a lot because it helps you add functionality around tracking to your website without using a developer. It would allow you to do things like set up tracking on the donate button, even if the donate button takes you off site. So if you're not able to do this right now, it's really beneficial to be able to say, okay, I know I got 100 page views on the donation site, and I know I got 10 donations, but how many people clicked on that donate button to get through to the process? That's one of the things we can help with. Google Data Studio is a terrific platform for creating reports that are visual, that have nice graphs, that are updated from their data source in a real-time way. And the great thing about Google Data Studio is there's a lot of free templates out there. All you have to do is copy the template and replace it with your data source, and you've got this gorgeous looking report that you can share with your stakeholders. Using a social platform like Sprout Social or Hootsuite will make it easier for you to schedule posts, although you can schedule posts in the platforms themselves. It'll also be a more convenient way for you to consolidate keeping on top of communication with people in each of those social platforms. And then don't forget that each of the channels that you're using may have their own analytics you're going to want to gather data from. So Google Ads will have a little bit deeper information about what ad copy was successful. Your email platform is going to have open rate information in it that you may want to bring in as well. So your baseline checklist, though, at this point of tracking is going to be, is Google Analytics functioning as it should? Are you tracking your key on-site actions? So what's important on your website, and are you identifying those as goals in Google Analytics so that you can see which parts of your traffic on your website are most valuable to you and learn how to optimize from there. And then, do you have a way of measuring the results that you're looking for? And even better, do you have a way of visualizing them? From a data perspective, that's how you're going to think about collecting all of that data. What are you going to do with that data? We like to think of reports as little stories. So what story do you want to tell when you're telling the story about this Giving Tuesday campaign? Often it starts with a question. So what questions could we be answering? We could be answering, how much did our campaign improve over last year? Well, if that's a question I want to know, one of the first questions I'm going to ask myself is, what did we track last year? So that I can know where, what can I report improvement on? What was the overall impact to the organization? That's a broader question, right? That's a multi-channel question. It's probably going to bring in data from a couple different sources. What was the number of new followers we got and donations, and from which channels? How much money did we raise? How many new donors did we reach? And ultimately, should we invest more in this campaign next year? So thinking through these questions and how you want to tell stories with the data that you're develop is valuable at this stage, because it can help you hone in on the goals for your campaign and also make sure that you've got all the tracking correct. But once you're ready to consolidate the data that you get, you might actually find some new stories in there too, right? Like, oh, it's interesting because the breakout new donor segment that we found is that it turns out, we have an overlap with this other nonprofit, and if we work together, maybe we can have better results than we did before. So you will find new stories in the data, and those will become interesting stories as well. Okay, so my goal here today has been really to get you a little excited, hopefully probably a little overwhelmed, but I want to give you a rope back, right? It is an exciting movement to be part of. And I would really encourage you to think about how you can leverage it even better than you did last year by taking one or two of these examples across all of the channels and applying it for your nonprofit. We have some different resources that including some really interesting workbooks. The Giving Tuesday organization has some toolkits that include email and social post wording examples. So if you're running into a mental block there, you have something to start with. So there's some great stuff in here that you'll get when we send this out. I want to make a plug for some upcoming workshops that we have scheduled through October and November. So 12 digital marketing tips for the holidays is definitely more business oriented, but a really good cross-channel workshop. How to build your marketing roadmap covers some of the more strategic topics. And then 5 ideas for SEO success in 2021 is coming up in November. So if you want to sign up for any of those, please go to the upcoming training page on our website. We would love to see you again. This is my contact information. If you have follow-up questions that you feel like aren't appropriate in the chat, I'm happy to chat with you via email or connect you with somebody on the team. Thank you all for coming.